On the revered day of Yom Kippur, October 6, 1973, a date marked by divine sanctity in Judaism, tranquility was shattered by the fangs of deception. After weaving a web of diplomatic pleasantries, Egypt unfurled its covert strategy, launching a colossal surprise attack against a completely unprepared Israel. Their celebrations abruptly morphed into a frenzied struggle for survival. A dark, ominous cloud of over 200 Egyptian aircraft shadowed the Israeli skies, heralding the storm to come. The unsuspecting Israeli Air Force Base Ofir at Sharm el-Sheikh found itself targeted by a lethal enemy formation, 20 MiG-17s and 8 MiG-21s creeping over the horizon with a single merciless objective: to eradicate the military stronghold. Israel, grappling with the sudden ambush and ignorant of the enemy's overwhelming numerical superiority, retaliated in the only way it could. They rapidly mobilized 2 F-4E Phantom II fighter jets, challenging the 28 menacing MiGs looming above. As the Israeli defenders ascended, cresting the cloud barrier, they were met with a chilling spectacle: a sea of adversaries ready to engage them in battle. Faced with overwhelming odds, the 2 courageous pilots, instead of recoiling, displayed unshakable resolve. Disregarding their safety, they jettisoned their external fuel tanks, boldly engaging the swarm of enemy warplanes in a spectacular aerial duel. Their selfless actions, an immortal testament to bravery, would forever imprint their names in the archives of modern warfare. It was the early 1970s, the Cold War era. The world was split into 2 hemispheres, the East, under the influence of the USSR, and the West, helmed by the United States. With its strategic significance and rich oil reserves, the Middle East had become a chessboard in this global game of power. After the Six-Day War of 1967, Israel held the Golan Heights, the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. The world was watching an ascending Israel, and many Arab states, still reeling from their defeat, sought a way to restore their lost dignity. Egypt and Syria were at the forefront of these nations. Their desire for revenge simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment. It was in the heart of Cairo when the grand scheme began. The charismatic Egyptian president, Anwar Sadat, known for his bold and audacious plans, was the mastermind. Tired of the stalemate and covertly encouraged by the Soviets, he began to plan a surprise attack on Israel. He knew a direct confrontation was too dangerous. Instead, he envisioned a grand deception, a plan that would lead to the Yom Kippur War. To this end, Sadat cunningly masked his intentions by initiating peace overtures with Israel, while embarking on a massive military buildup funded by rich Arab states and armed by the Soviets. Simultaneously, he kicked out Soviet advisors from Egypt, thereby successfully creating a facade of distancing from the USSR and appearing less threatening to the Israelis. Syria, under Hafez al-Assad, was equally hungry for retaliation. They joined forces with Egypt, secretly mobilizing troops and resources. They adopted a strategic depth approach, setting up dummy defense lines to mislead Israeli reconnaissance. Meanwhile, their actual attacking forces were hidden behind these decoys. As plans progressed, Sadat decided the attack would coincide with Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism, when Israel would be at its most vulnerable, observing a fast with businesses and the military at a near standstill. The date was set, October 6, 1973. Despite intelligence suggesting unusual military activity, Israel was deceived. The Egyptian and Syrian misinformation campaign, coupled with a certain level of Israeli overconfidence stemming from their quick victory in the Six-Day War, led to a failure to perceive the imminence of the attack. Just days before the planned attack, Ashraf Marwan, a high-ranking Egyptian official and son-in-law of former Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, turned double agent for Israel, delivering the warning to Israeli intelligence. But his message came too late and was too ambiguous. The risk of full-scale mobilization based on uncertain intelligence was deemed too high, leading to indecisiveness. Thus, with the stage set, the clock ticking, and the pieces in place, the stage was set for the Yom Kippur War. As the wheel of fate turned, the blame for the mounting hostility in the Middle East didn't entirely rest upon the shoulders of the Muslim nations, even Egypt. Israel, too, had played its part in stoking the fiery cauldron of conflict that would soon boil over into the Yom Kippur War. The unfortunate incident of Libyan Arab Airlines Flight 114 served as a key accelerant in the escalating tension. On February 21, 1973, a commercial Libyan jet unknowingly trespassed into the contested skies above the Sinai Peninsula, an area then under Israeli control following the Six-Day War of 1967. A devastating blend of technical failure and a blinding sandstorm had led the airliner astray from its designated route. Responding to the unidentified encroachment, the Israeli Air Force launched 2 F-4 Phantom jets. The pilots tried communicating with the lost commercial airliner, signaling it to land. However, the signals seemingly fell on confused ears aboard Flight 114, which remained on its trajectory. Left with no other option, and fearing a security breach, the Israeli pilots executed their orders, shooting the airliner down. The grim aftermath saw 108 innocent lives lost, leaving only 5 survivors. The international community's outcry compounded the echo of the explosion. The incident painted a target on Israel, casting it as a belligerent player with little respect for international law. The wave of condemnation stretched beyond the Arab world, fueling the region's smoldering tension. The catastrophe played right into the hands of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. It added credibility to his narrative of Israeli aggression and justified the need for military counteraction. Using this incident, Sadat garnered support from fellow Arab nations and the Soviet Union for his intended retaliation against Israel. The raw anguish and cries for vengeance among the Egyptian people empowered Sadat to rally the masses in preparation for the forthcoming war. Anticipating reprisal, the Israeli Air Force High Command fortified their defenses, keeping fighter aircraft on quick reaction alert at Ofir base, under the resolute leadership of Yaakov Yak Nevo. This protective mantle was also aimed at neutralizing threats from Egyptian MiGs towards the Israeli Navy Red Sea Flotilla and the Hawk missile batteries guarding the Red Sea Straits. On October 6, 1973, the sacred day of Yom Kippur, war eclipsed the Israeli skies. The Ofir base, housing a mere pair of IAF 107 F-4E Phantoms and their relatively inexperienced crew, was on high alert. The day's calm was pierced by a red alert in the morning, followed by a chilling siren at 1:50 p.m. When the controller hesitated to act on incoming radar signals, pilot Amir Nahumi took the reins, swiftly launching their jets into the hostile skies. They had no idea what they were up against, how many warplanes, or what armament they had, but they were the last line of defense, and they were not about to stand down. Nahumi's haunted recollection painted a vivid picture. Quote, "I decided to take off, and seconds later, the runway was bombed. Had we waited any longer, we would have been unable to do so. There were 7 4-ship formations of MiG-17s and MiG-21s. The story of these pilots is a grim testimony to the high-stakes dance of war, where timing and bravery make all the difference." The skies roared into life as the MiGs initiated their vicious assault, bombs raining on the airbase like hail in a thunderstorm. Sensing the imminent danger, Nahumi issued a stern command to Shaki: discard the extra weight of their detachable fuel tanks, divide and conquer. Shaki would head west, while Nahumi bolted east, each facing their destiny head-on. Like a bird of prey, Nahumi unleashed the fiery wrath of a Sidewinder missile, obliterating a MiG in an explosion that lit up the evening sky. However, the threat was far from over. 2 MiGs swooped down on the base, leaving Nahumi in their lethal wake. The base's MiM-23 Hawk battery held fire, refusing to risk the lives of its airborne allies. The MiGs took advantage of this self-imposed silence, diving to annihilate the defenseless battery. Nahumi sprang into action, chasing the leading MiG through the swirling dust and smoke. His aircraft skimmed the ground as he fired his M61 Gatling gun, yet the MiG evaded, its bombing mission aborted. A sudden jolt shook Nahumi's plane, a compressor stall in the left engine, likely from a cannon burst. However, Nahumi was a fighter and a survivor. Temporarily on a single engine, he struggled but regained control, cleverly using the distraction to attack the second MiG's vulnerable tail. They played a high-speed game of chicken, Nahumi pulling up to face his adversary, a split-second decision resulting in another enemy downed, a fiery trail marking its downfall. The surviving MiG fled in panic. Soaring into the next skirmish, Nahumi spotted a pair of MiG-17s laying siege to a vital communications unit near the bay. Startled by Nahumi's unexpected presence, one panicked MiG fired its air-to-surface missiles. A futile effort swiftly ended as Nahumi struck it down from 600 meters. Meanwhile, Shaki, with 3 victories to his name, found himself in the crosshairs of attacking MiG-21s. One desperate enemy plunged toward the sea at a death-defying speed, bouncing off the water's surface before escaping. With fuel reserves dwindling, Shaki made the tough call to land on the scarred runway. Just as Nahumi took a moment to draw breath, a dazzling flare of light momentarily blinded him. Another pair of MiGs, desperate to break away. Quick as a viper, Nahumi struck down one with the scant fuel left in his reserves. The other veered away, seeking solace in the jagged embrace of the mountains below. Nahumi, his fighter flirting dangerously with an empty tank, had no choice but to abandon the chase. Each thunderous heartbeat of the aerial showdown had rattled the 2 pilots to their core. The engagement had stretched out into what felt like a timeless ordeal, their hearts pounding with a ferocity they had never experienced. Yet, when the dust settled, they had decimated 7 Egyptian MiGs in a span of less than 6 minutes. It was an extraordinary feat that sent the surviving enemy aircraft into retreat, beating a hasty path back to the relative safety of Egyptian airspace. Nahumi and Shaki, having navigated the tempest of aerial warfare, touched down on a parallel runway. Shorter and less marred by the wrath of conflict, it offered them a haven amid the chaos. Once grounded, they readied their fighters for another anticipated Egyptian attack, a sequel that ultimately never unfolded. Their actions, marked by valor and defiance against insurmountable odds, earned them the Distinguished Service Medal. The tale, recounted by the Israeli pilots and corroborated by the remnants of the battle, etched a narrative widely accepted as the official chronicle of the Ofir air battle. However, bearing the sting of humiliation, the Egyptian authorities repudiated the Israeli account, a stance they uphold to this day. From the Egyptian vantage point, the Ras Nasrani Air Base, as the Israelis called Ofir, was indeed targeted during their airstrike on October 6th. This operation saw the deployment of approximately 220 aircraft. MiG-21 jets escorted the MiG-17s in the airstrike against Ras Nasrani. These were part of the No. 25 Squadron at the EAF's 102nd Air Wing. The MiG-21s, however, abstained from engaging in ground assault, and according to their pilots, they never encountered any aerial resistance. In stark contrast to the weighty losses reported by the Israeli side, Egyptian military leaders posited a far less severe narrative. Egyptian Chief of Staff Saad al-Shajli and Commander Abdel Ghani al-Ghamazi, among others, reported a mere 5 aircraft lost in the initial stages of the conflict. Another source acknowledged the loss of 7 aircraft to Israeli fighters and several more to anti-aircraft artillery, muddling the sequence of events even more, at least from the Egyptian perspective. Yet, the compelling notion of a pair of F-4 Phantom II jets squaring off against an imposing enemy force and not merely surviving, but dealing a crippling blow, is an irresistible story. Assuming the validity of the Israeli version, supported by the available evidence, the Ofir air battle ascends from a mere historical event to a saga of extraordinary bravery, unlike anything seen in the modern history of aviation combat.